For me, there's absolutely no difference whatsoever, whether it's local or national level. Some students don't have the means to travel or the time to travel, and I don't think that should be held against anyone. So yeah, the type of meeting or whether you even show up to a meeting, it couldn't matter less to me.
Oh, we were just talking about this. So here in Washington, the two schools of pharmacy are doing a joint showcase this year, a virtual one. And I was working pretty closely with the University of Washington School of Pharmacy. And most years we do a small showcase and maybe 3 hours in the evening time. And I'm always surprised by how few fourth year students come to the showcase. And it is usually you have all the residents there and the director and maybe one other clinical pharmacist that you can connect with. And you have unlimited time to ask questions and to meet them. And for some reason, the fourth year students just don't show up to it. Personally, I think that local showcase is much more personal and we remember you versus mid-year. There's so many people, you barely remember who stops by the booth. We keep track and most of us have an okay memory, but that is definitely not a deciding factor for when we decide to interview.
I think it's important. I think showing that out of the other programs available to talk to, that you're choosing to talk to this program. We know that at mid-year there's a lot of programs to choose from, and there's limited time. So I think it shows, it demonstrates how interested you are in our program. And I would also say that for us at least, the conversations are usually lighthearted enough. We don't have a lot of expectations for what the student knows or says during those interactions. So it's really kind of a win-win for the student that they get the face time and we're not really judging them.
So for me, showcases have always been the promotion of the residency program. It's not the promotion of the student. And I want to be able to talk to as many students about our program as possible. And so I want the students to be able to get as much information from me as possible and kind of get a look and a feel of what the residency is, meet some of the preceptors, meet the residents, meet myself, and kind of get my viewpoint on things. But it's not necessarily for the student to sell themselves. I don't really take away a lot of, okay, this is how, these are my top 5 from the showcase. We just don't do that. Again, it's more of a promotion of the residency rather than really collecting candidates that we're going to earmark for interviews.
I think it is important for them to do that. Of course, we understand that it is expensive to do so sometimes, especially for the larger scale showcase such as mid-year. So that could be a limitation for some students. But it can definitely make an important impression to our program. Just from my past experience, I've seen it both ways, making a positive or negative experience. Someone might come off as being too aggressive, and that could come off negatively for them, whereas someone can seem too timid and lack confidence, and that could be concerning. But there's definitely been candidates in the past where having made a strong impression during the showcase made it so that we actually were on the lookout specifically for their applications, so that definitely can give them a leg up. But I would say the majority of applicants, when it comes to a showcase, the majority of applicants blend in, but occasionally you would have some that would stand out.
I think just reaching out via email, that's usually the fastest and easiest way to communicate nowadays. Certainly calling on the phone the old-fashioned way is also nice, but email is I prefer email because you can respond to it in your own time. With a busy schedule, that is nice thing, but I have met via Zoom with some candidates who have just emailed me and we've set something up.
That's fantastic.
Sometimes people contact by email, and myself or some of the residents are more than happy to apply. I know this year is presenting some unique circumstances, and some of the programs are offering Q&A sessions virtually. I think, and in some cases, if they reach out to us via email, we will set up a Zoom meeting just kind of like this and chit chat or answer any of the questions that they might have. And so we're more than happy to offer, especially this year, some kind of unique methods of communication. But I think email is the easiest.
I certainly don't mind an email saying, unfortunately, I won't be able to make this year to mid-year. I was really interested in your program. I have this, and this question, and I'll be happy to answer it. This year, we actually set up some specific school-specific virtual Q&A sessions that are kind of outside of mid-year, just trying to give all the students a chance to talk to us. I think mid-year is going to be a disaster this year.
Is to email me a list of questions and have to have me type them out. I'd rather say, hey, do you have them email me and say, hey, do you have 10 or 15 minutes where you can just have a phone conversation, to just be able to do that. That's good. Again, it's not going to ever be that this person has contacted me 3 times, so I'm going to earmark them for an interview. And again, the student should get as much information about programs as they feel like they need as they're preparing to apply. And so I do want to be able to provide anything I can to students, but I don't really feel that any of the prior application detailing really persuades me to one student or the other. It's really trying to get our program out there and get them to get interested and excited about what we have to offer.
Yeah, so for our program, for example, we have a website, and it's very easy for them to just search for that, or even if you go to the residency directory on ASHP, there's my contact information as a program director is listed on there, so they're always welcome to just email me and reach out. And what I appreciate when they do reach out is to have actually specific questions, again, showing that they did research. I don't really appreciate questions that are like, oh, please tell me about your program. Well, you can read about it online first and then ask me if you have some questions. And, I'm happy to answer their questions and to also forward their questions to our current residents or even former residents, depending on what kind of questions they have. And that way the residents can get in touch with them as well, whether through email or phone, whatever is the preference for the student and or the resident involved. And so yeah, if they can't come to a showcase or meeting, which we can totally understand, I think it's a perfectly great ways for them to just email and reach out to us that way.
I think meeting with students is really a lot of fun, and getting to know them and answering the questions they have. I think if someone returns to the booth with follow-up questions or something that they've thought of right after the fact is fine, but coming back solely for the purpose of just checking in and saying hi again in such a busy environment, often it's not really a positive thing. So usually once is enough, and then follow-up questions are fine, but even follow-up questions with email or maybe even preferred, just to give opportunities to other people so that it's fair, so everyone gets a chance to talk to someone in person.
I continue to have a hard time answering this question because I have the same question that the residents, my current residents have, is when do you know that something's too much? And it would be the same as any kind of social situation, right? But the hard part about email is you don't have those physical cues of their facial expressions or their body language of somebody turning away, but I think you can read it in an email, and you just have to be more careful. My suggestion to applicants is to always heed on the side of being conservative about that, because the moment you become pushy or step outside of that area, that normal conversation, you then start falling into the no bucket. But this is why we include our residents in the interview process, because once you get on the other side of interviewing, I always describe it as like a glass of wine. You can drink 10 glasses of wine and you're like, I don't drink wine. But when you get to the one good one, you're like, oh yeah, this is good. And you get to the bad one, you say, oh, this is bad. But can you describe what it tastes like? No, but you know what good and bad is. If you were to email and there wasn't a response, I think one additional follow-up is appropriate. If they don't respond a second time, I would stop there. However, if you have a constructive conversation that continues, you are welcome to converse as many times as you need to, or have follow-up questions. However, once you feel like the conversation has stopped and I think there's a certain social aspect of, you got your questions answered, and there's only so much that can be answered via email.
I would say, like, if I have a booth, I don't mind the student coming by every time I have a booth and contacting me. If it's like more than about 2 emails, it's probably too much for direct correspondence. I'd say limited to 2.
I really feel like more than once. I mean, there's no real reason to, unless there's another specific follow-up question that they're like, oh, you know what, I forgot to ask you, what do you think about this? Or we were talking about this, but I really want to get clarification on this item. If it's only to come back and say, oh, hey, again, it's like, usually, I mean, this year is going to be so significantly different, but usually at, for example, mid-year or some of the state-affiliated larger showcases, it's very busy. There's a lot of students, and so coming back and having that time again with the same student, it inhibits me from being able to talk to as many students as possible. But I don't mind that, oh, hey, how's it going? Or, hey, remember me? I do like when students reintroduce themselves, because let me tell you, it is challenging to remember every single face, every single name. So just having that, like, hey, I'm so-and-so member from this, and we talked about that, and I'm like, oh yeah, totally remember. But a lot of times, it's hard. So reintroductions are always appreciated on my side.
I would say 2 times is pretty good, at most 3 times, because you also want to be, as a student, you also want to show respect to other people's time, like whether it's the current residents or myself, the program director's time, or other students' time as well. So I think, going twice is great, because it shows that you have definitely strong interest, and it's even better if you actually come with additional questions, and you can even refer back to your conversation like, hey, I appreciated the time we spoke at the last meeting, and I really appreciate this answer that you provided for such and such question I had, and I thought about it some more, and I have some additional follow-up questions. You have time to talk about it. So then that really shows that, they really thought about what was discussed previously and was thinking about the program even more. I've had instances where, students want to show a lot of interest, and I appreciate that. But again, it can go towards the spectrum of being too aggressive at times if they do too much.